We're recording now. Everything is good. Everything is happening. Everyone's happy. Everyone's in love. All right, everybody, and welcome back to GC Squared. It's our podcast, and we're here, and it's great, and it's fantastic, and we love it. And we love it so much that I am here with my good friend Garrett. Now, when Garrett isn't fighting off what would we call it, the mental intrusions of being attached to an alien symbiote, he is a video game expert, and he does video game stuff, and he plays video games, and he is all about video games. Garrett, can you tell me a little bit about video games?
Sure thing. I have been having a really good time with video games recently because the Switch 2 comes out next week from the time of this recording.
That's right. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Being a big fan of Nintendo overall, not always a fan of all the things they do, but being a big fan of their games, I am definitely looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Yes. Tell me a little bit about that. Tell me what your feelings are. We're a week away. This is the last time I will ever talk to you before you are a Switch 2 owner, probably. Maybe, I don't know, by chat after this, or, yeah, I don't know.
We'll see, it's possible.
Tell me how you're feeling. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. Already got it pre-ordered and everything. Got the Mario Kart World version. Hopefully it arrives the day of. If it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. I may or may not have requested that Thursday and Friday off, just so that if it does arrive in time, I can just play it pretty much for 4 days straight.
Dude, that reminds me. I heard about this crazy thing recently relating to video game releases.
Yeah, sure thing. What's up?
Apparently, when what was it? When GTA 5 released, there was a very, very large noticeable dip in the economy on that day specifically, because it released on a Thursday, and everyone took Thursday and Friday off, and nobody was going out and buying stuff.
Yeah, I could see that happening. Funny enough, I need to double check if this is true. Just a moment. Because if it is true, it's kind of hilarious. Okay, so it's a myth. Okay, that's fine. Alright, so, but a lot of times they will purposefully release Dragon Quest games in Japan on Fridays to avoid like disruptions and stuff because of the fact that people love Dragon Quest in Japan.
I've heard that. I've heard similar things. I heard that that's a big reason why big video game drops usually happen on Friday here in the States as well.
But yeah, it just avoids people playing hooky or people calling out from work, stuff like that. And then Nintendo's like, nah, we're gonna release the Switch 2 on Thursday. I'm like, okay, guess I'm asking Thursday and Friday off, and I got them off, so yeah.
Oh, sweet. At least you got it in advance and you weren't one of those people who called in and was like, oh, I'm sick, help me, I'm dying on the day of, and just like pretending.
Yeah, so at my work, you can request days off up to 3 weeks in advance. So the second I was 3 weeks ahead, I immediately submitted that request, and since it was 3 weeks ahead and nobody else had submitted the request yet, I was immediately approved for it. So I'm good to go this upcoming week. So yeah, that was kind of nice. Was after I finished work yesterday on Friday, I sat there, I was like, okay, I gotta work 3 more days, but I'm gonna have 6 days off in the upcoming week, which is gonna be awesome.
All right, so tell me a little bit about the features you're most excited for.
Yes, the thing I am most excited for is the fact that it has mouse control. Whoa! No, not really. Whoa. That's not what I'm most excited for, but that is kind of cool.
Okay.
No, there's some solid improvements being made to the Switch 2 that I like. Definitely the biggest thing I'm excited for is the jump in graphical quality and the overall power of the device, because if we're being honest, the original Switch is a pretty underpowered device overall.
The original Switch is a masterpiece and perfection in engineering.
Yeah, especially the fact that it's only slightly stronger than a Vita, right?
The Vita is absolutely perfect in every way.
Yeah, so I grabbed the Switch. Yeah, so grab the Switch. I think it's really cool that we're seeing these Switch 2 releases. I also think that's really, really cool that they're going to be upgrading Switch 1 games. And if you have the online like I do, you're going to, day one, have access to the Tears of the Kingdom and the Breath of the Wild upgrades. So I'm going to be able to play those at much higher resolutions at 60 FPS, which is excellent.
And I appreciate that they also um, added a secondary save file for those who want to keep their old save, but still want to play the game from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. It's always cool when they consider stuff like that. I'm also yeah, so they said based on the specs, it's going to be roughly the same power as a PS4 Pro. So, not the most powerful thing ever, but definitely not something to sneeze at,
Yeah, we should probably add something like this to the Magical List of Wonder, because it's something I've been thinking about a lot, especially lately, how Nintendo disguises a lot of their, what would you call it? A lot of being behind technology wise as brand new features. Because, yeah, the Switch 2 is about as powerful as a PS4 Pro. That's cool. In 2 years, it's still going to be 2 generations behind.
Yeah, that's true.
But they're like hyping it up like it's this big, huge, cool new thing, and it's like only sort of. And then we've got like the cards are, what did they call them? It's like key cards, game key cards.
Oh, the game key cards, yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to make that sound like a cool new thing, and it's like that's actually an annoyance, and it's what everyone else has been doing for years.
Mm-hmm.
And the big feature is we added chat to the Switch 2. It's like, oh, cool. We've had a chat button for close to 15 years on the other two consoles.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's like they tried their best to make it like seem like it's this really cool thing, but like you can look at your friend's gameplay, but it's gonna be at like 10 frames per second with tons of lag.
Oh my gosh, that was silly. But like the
Yeah.
other thing is they're hiding the whole chat feature is behind a paywall. And
Yep.
granted, it's a very small paywall, but it is a paywall nonetheless. And the other
Exactly.
two, their chat feature just exists. As long as you can play a game together, you can chat.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's like, I don't know, that was the big thing I kept getting through the reveal direct that they made was,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is neat, this is cool, we got new stuff for the Switch 2, but it's only new for the Switch 2. It's not new for anybody else.
Yeah, I was joking, like, why would I spend money to use that when I can just hop on Discord and do that for free?
Great. And that's the thing. There are other ways to do it. And yeah, Discord, it's like a PC thing, but PlayStation recently dropped it on their consoles. I can chat on Discord on PlayStation. And Xbox recently leaked a screenshot of their upcoming UI updates, and there's a Steam feature on it.
Nice.
So it's like, it's cool. Thank you for announcing this. Thanks for trying to hype it up. But it's hard for me to get hyped up when I've been riding the PlayStation train this whole time and I've had all of this stuff.
That's the thing, is even though, because my big thing is I mostly play PC games and then Nintendo games. And the reason for that is because a lot of PlayStation and Xbox games can be played on PC because luckily, both Microsoft and Sony have gone smart and realized that they can reach a wider audience and make more money if they expand to other platforms, so exclusives aren't as common on them anymore. So because of that, I mostly use my PC to cover those games I'm interested in. Then I keep my Nintendo devices because Nintendo doesn't like to share.
Nintendo does not like to share. They are also the only company that, as far as I can see, wants to make money on the console.
Very true.
Like the other
Yeah,
ones,
that's
PlayStation and Xbox, they sell their consoles at a loss. They take a wash on them every time, but it creates an
yeah.
install base and then they make money off the games.
The reason why they started doing that actually was because I know with the PS3 they were trying to still make money off of it, but it got such backlash from the high price point and lost so many sales that they realized it was better for them to sell the console at a slight loss to, like you said, make up for it in accessories and in video games, because accessories they definitely make really good profits off of people buying new controllers and things like that.
Yeah, that's where the money comes from. Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
So it's uh, we've talked many times about this before, both on the podcast and off. We love Nintendo. They make weird choices, though.
The way I phrase it is I love Nintendo developers and Nintendo games. Nintendo company itself, I'm not the biggest fan of.
It's like uh, on Free Comic Book Day, I was chatting with this family, and I was chatting with the wife of this family, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I wish I liked Disney, but I kind of feel like I'm not supposed to." And it's like, well, that's because Disney, the company, is kind of like the weird, like he's kind of a dweeb, and nobody wants to like him, but he's the only one on the block that has a Nintendo 64. So we all want to be friends with him because we want to play his video games because he has all the coolest toys. But he himself is not a pleasant person.
I getcha. Like, in essence, it's the content that's carrying it, not the company itself.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yep, that's how it goes sometimes, honestly. Yeah, and I feel like after the success of the original Switch, Nintendo's definitely in that mindset of, we're huge, we're succeeding, so we need to capitalize on that. So some of their greediness is popping up again that we saw previously with the Wii.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, what can you do?
Yep, and then, so looking forward to Mario Kart World. Looks like it's going to be fun. I'm bad at racing games, but that single player mode looks like a blast. And then, also planning to grab Street Fighter 6 right away, and also the Bravely Default remake, which I'm excited for that as well.
Cool.
Yeah, so that pretty much summarizes it. Aside from that, I finally beat Metaphor ReFantazio after playing that game for 6 months.
Yay! What'd you think?
I loved it. It was so good.
Cool.
Put 80 hours into that game.
That's a good amount of time. Tell me about your experience with that. What was some of the better, worse, or what were some of the parts?
Yeah, sure. So, what I found most enjoyable about it was just the overall story and the characters were good. The music is phenomenal. Even if you don't play the game, I highly recommend listening to some of the songs at some point because the music is so good. Very solid cast of characters, very fun gameplay overall. I felt like it wasn't always the most balanced when it came to combat, and some of the boss fights were kind of ridiculous in how they were set up, but fun combat overall. Very enjoyable game. I did everything in my power to complete everything. I did all the social bonds with every character. I beat the 4 super bosses in the game and then took on the final boss afterward. And after doing that, I double checked, and there's one more super boss that you can do, but you can only do in New Game Plus. So I'm gonna have to replay it in the future.
Do you ever do you ever think about like the big super bosses from the perspective of the final boss? Like, if we were to use Breath of the Wild for an example, you have Ganon, but canonically speaking, Link would have had to beat the DLC before he fought Ganon. And the DLC is way harder than fighting Ganon is. You ever think that like Ganon sits down and he's like, I don't deserve to be the final boss?
I used to love doing that with Kingdom Hearts specifically, where I would go and beat the super bosses, then go back and refight the final boss and just destroy them in seconds.
Door to Darkness? What is that?
That's especially the case in Kingdom Hearts 2. If you go beat Sephiroth and all the bonus bosses, then you come back and you fight Xemnas again. He's just destroyed in seconds.
It's been a while since I've gone all the way through Kingdom Hearts 2, but I feel like Xemnas wasn't that hard.
Not really, honestly. He's not that challenging of a boss overall.
No. Then Kingdom Hearts 1, you fight Xehanort, sort of. And the second phase of that fight, that was no fun to go through, but like the rest of it was way easy.
I didn't have, well, my thing, okay, I had a lot of trouble with the second phase of the fight when I was a kid, to the point that I left and grinded to level 80, then came back and beat him.
Well, yeah, I kind of had to do the same with Maleficent. Like, I could not beat Maleficent. And I thought for sure she was close to the end of the game. And everyone I talked to said, oh, no, you have like a ton more game after you defeat Maleficent. It's like, how can I? But it turns out that was true. And I thought for sure she was the final boss because I was just having such a hard time with her. And I just had to... The only thing I could do was leave and come back. But it turns out I'm not very good at video games. Or maybe I'm not good at following instructions, one of the two. Because I was playing Arkham Knight on a stream, right?
Okay.
And I was struggling through all the fights because I was playing on the hardest difficulty. And there was this guy who hopped into the chat who I think he was a content creator on the Arkham games specifically.
Okay.
And he's like, it's impressive you got this far as you did because you're missing one of the fundamental elements of the combat system. You're not doing any of the takedowns. You're just punching and then dodging. And I'm like, wait, what? And I tried, he explained it to me in the chat, and it's just like you push two buttons at the same time. That's it. And I did it, and it's like, oh, this game is so much easier, and I breezed through it. But it's like, this is beginning tutorial stuff. I played it again, and it's brought up in the tutorial. It's like, are you kidding me?
Hey, good on that guy, though, for not making fun of you, but instead being like, hey, you can actually do this to make the combat easier. And on top of that, like, that was also cool of him to give you a compliment, like saying it was impressive you made it that far without using the takedowns.
Yeah. Well, he'd been watching for a couple of streams. I think he initially thought I was doing like some self-imposed challenge or something.
Ah, okay.
So he's just watching me struggle. He's like, wow, he's putting a lot of work into this arbitrary challenge. And then it's like, oh, it's not really a challenge. He just doesn't know. Oh, yeah, that was actually one of my favorite streams I ever done. Like, everyone was super nice about it, and even though some of those fights took me like an hour to get through when they really should have taken me 5 minutes with the combo, like, everyone was really chill about it. It was a fun time.
Okay, well, that's cool, at least.
Any other video game stuff?
Um, Nothing really besides that, I guess. Just, finally beat Metaphor, jumping into other games. I'm getting back into Marvel Midnight Suns, so that's pretty fun. I made my character look like He-Man, which is even more fun.
Very cool.
Yep, and I'll keep you updated about that as I keep going through.
I'm excited to hear about it.
Alright, so with that in mind, though, when Taylor isn't busy pulling his heart out of his chest to speak into it like it's a microphone and summoning his archetype, he gets involved in comic book stuff and records really cool videos and is awesome. So Taylor, why don't you tell us about the world of comic books?
Wow. Was that from Metaphor Fantasia?
That sure is.
Okay. Rock on. Let's go. So, let's see. Big things that have been going on for me. Free Comic Book Day wasn't too long ago. And I picked up an obscene amount of comics at that event. From that stack that I've been reading recently, I've been going through Trigun, which I don't know if you've heard about that or have any context for it.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Trigun.
Yeah. Well, for those listeners who probably aren't as familiar with it, it's about this. It's a sci-fi set on a different planet in the far future, but it has a lot of Western overtones to it. And it stars this guy called Vash the Stampede, who's this infamous outlaw gunslinger, but when the people who get to know him find out that he's like this super positive, super altruistic pacifist, and it's like, okay, hold on, what's happening here? Where's this disconnect coming from? And it's all about trying to find that mystery and find those answers. And I saw the show, I saw the remake, or the reboot of it, I should say, a couple years ago, but then I saw the original somewhat recently. And when I went to the Level Up Expo, it's a video game expo that happens in Las Vegas, I met a cosplayer who was cosplaying as Vash the Stampede, and she recommended up and down, forever and always, that everyone should read the book. So that's what I'm doing.
Nice. I was actually there as well.
It was a fun time. I didn't
It was a
really
very
see
fun
much. So we kind of ran off and did our own thing.
Very true, yeah. But that's all good. I got my copy of Dark Cloud 2 signed by Scott Menville, which, fans of comic books will recognize that name instantly.
Right. He's the voice actor for Robin in Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go.
Yep. So, yeah, got that signed, and I love sharing this story really quick if it's alright. Figured it's cool since it's comic book related.
I mean, it's our podcast. It's yours as much as mine. Go for it.
Fair enough. Okay, so I got Scott Menville to sign it, and I show him my copy of Dark Cloud 2. And I was kind of worried that he wouldn't remember the game, because this was, over 20 years ago. Not a very big, successful game, but a game I absolutely adore. Probably my all-time favorite PS2 game, if I'm being honest. I love Dark Cloud 2. So I bring it to him, and it's kind of funny because he's like, oh yeah, I remember Dark Cloud 2. And he goes, the reason why I remember it, actually, is because as I was walking into the studio to record my lines for the main character, Max, I got a call from my agent, and my agent explained that I had just landed the role of Robin, and I was going to play Robin in Teen Titans. So the reason why he remembers Dark Cloud 2 is because that's where he was when he got the role of Robin.
Yeah, you never forget the job where you got your much better, longer lasting, higher paying job.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I just thought that was a cool story.
That is a cool story. And to be fair, after that day, we both went back to your place, and you started playing Dark Cloud 2, and I can't lie to you, buddy. After that trip, I got back home, and every fiber in my being just wanted to sit down in front of a PlayStation 2 and play some games from 2004.
I know, right?
Like something about Dark Cloud 2, I'd never played it before, I've never seen it before, but something about it just took me back there instantly. And it's like I need to go back to 2004 for a little bit.
It is a very, very nostalgic game for sure. Just in the sense of like, it was that cool in between time where, cell shading was becoming bigger, but wasn't like perfected or really good yet. So all the characters have these really thick lines on them, but it's still stylized in a way where the graphics still look decent, even nowadays, just because of the stylized aspect. And like the gameplay is not janky like the first Dark Cloud one. It's just smooth and just good enough where it's comfortable to play and you don't feel like you're fighting against the game or the gameplay takes you out of it. So yeah, I can see what you mean because it's like one of the most PS2 games ever.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what it is. It is the most PS2 game. And it was just killing me. I got back and it's like, I kind of wanted to get a copy of Dark Cloud 2. Like something just drew me in and it's like, this is the game I want to play right now.
I mean,
Never
to be
seen
fair,
it before in my life.
Yeah, the thing about Dark Cloud 2, luckily you don't need to play the first one at all to understand it. But to go off of that point, though, is like, I know you're not the biggest fan of like turn-based RPGs, so Dark Cloud 2 works well for you because it's an action RPG dungeon crawler with its gameplay.
Yeah.
And you didn't even get to the other cool parts of the game. Like, later in the game, starting Chapter 2 onward, you get to start building and creating your own towns.
Which, town building is something I really love to do in games when I can do it. I just like building stuff.
Yeah, like there are different aspects you have to keep in mind because the way the game works is that as you go to these different areas, what had happened was that the original way they were created had been disrupted by the main villain of the game, Griffin. So because of that, now, like, the way things are supposed to be in the future are no longer the way they are now. So now your characters, they're trying to rebuild these towns in ways to not only restore those cities and those places, but to make them even better than they were before.
Okay, so stick with me here. Isn't it weird that there was like this moment in time where you'd have these big games that are, very action heavy, action focused, but then you turn around and there's another mode that's like really chill and casual all of a sudden. Like you have that where it's like you go into a town builder, but then also Sonic Adventure 2, you have like this really big thing going on, but hold on, I need to go raise my Tamagotchis in this calm little garden for a while.
Yeah, I need to improve the stats of my Chow and equip different animals to them to get them to transform so I can increase their stats so that they can do better at racing.
Right, so they can do better at the little baby racing game that they have in there. And it's just like, that's cool. Eggman's about to destroy the planet, but we can wait.
There's always time for chows, okay?
There is always time for chows, which is fascinating to me. It's like, it's so silly that to me that you have this big actiony game and then you have this offside casual chill game mode in there.
It was definitely very common for the time period, that's for sure.
I'm trying to think if there were some other ones.
Before we go deeper into that, though, I'd actually would be interested in hearing any other comic book news or any comic books you've been reading, if that's cool.
Oh, look at that! I'm over here in the weeds. Let me get back to the past.
It's almost like what happens with our podcast. We just always get distracted.
It's like, ooh, shiny, let's go.
Yep.
All right, coming back. Picked up a bunch of comics. I've been going through. Uh, it's it has kind of a niche name. It's the Superman Triangle Era Omnibus, and it was called that because the editor of the Superman series books, so Action Comics, Superman Adventures of, and the Man of Steel, they were all monthly issues going on at the same time, one new Superman story per week. And to try and keep it all straight in people's minds and people's reading order, because they are all tying into each other, he decided to start numbering them on the front based on which week it was supposed to be read during the year. And this number was sitting inside of a triangle. So, like, you pick up a book and it would say 1994 number 1. And that was the book released in the first week of 1994. And
That's
then it would
really
go,
cool.
yeah, it would go up to 52, and then it would start back at 1 with the next year.
That's definitely something I've always appreciated about comic books as a form, is the fact that they're able to crank out these books every week is just so impressive.
It takes a lot of coordinating, and it's not really something you can do now.
Mm-hmm.
But that's actually something that we'll talk about later in the topic proper.
Sounds good.
But that was a feature that was very distinct to the Superman books, that numbering system. And since it was inside of a triangle on the front cover, that era from 1989 up to 2004-ish, maybe, was called the Triangle Era. And they recently released the Volume 1 Omnibus. Volume 2 is coming pretty soon. And I've been hacking my way through that, and that's been like my main read for the last little bit.
That's really cool.
It is. I've been having a lot of fun with it. In other news, we're inching ever closer to that Superman movie releasing.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it every single day. It's driving me nuts. I gotta see this movie, man.
You're focused on the Superman movie while I'm over here focused on the Switch 2 coming out.
Yeah, like I was talking to my sister though, and it's like I've been so entrenched in this movie and everything involving it. And I'm like, you know what? It would be really sad if this movie releases and it's not good. And
Man, dude. Sorry?
My sister pointed out that, yeah, she really hopes it's good, not for the reason that I hope it's good. But when Lightyear released, and Lightyear wasn't good, apparently, and I didn't notice this, it was all I could talk about for like 2 months, was how not good that movie was. And then it's like, oh crap, I feel kind of bad that I got like so single-minded on that. But everything that releases about it makes me feel pretty hopeful that it's going to be fantastic. But frankly, if the DC movies are going to survive, and if we expect specifically the character of Superman to do anything interesting for the next 10, 15 years, this movie needs to be spectacular.
Alright, I'm going to do something really quickly that I love to do with this kind of stuff.
Okay.
I'm going to hop into ChatGPT, right?
Okay.
And I'm going to ask it, who would be the best Superman actor ever? Oh, it's answering this in a way that I don't like, though.
It's probably going to just tell you that Christopher Reeve got it and move on, because Superman fans are a very traditional bunch. They do not like change.
Okay, I rephrased it from who would be the best Superman actor because it went, oh, the best Superman actor ever has already happened. It's Christopher Reeve. To instead, I changed it to if you could select someone to become the next Superman actor, who would you pick? And they chose someone named David Corenswet.
Well, he's the
Oh
current
wait,
guy.
oh my gosh, okay. You know what?
Yeah, he's the guy who's cast for this upcoming movie.
You know what? Forget you, ChatGPT. This is why we can't rely on AI.
Yes.
Because
Tell off evil robot.
I did that with the Legend of Zelda live action movie, and it made me so angry.
Going to tell you that Tom Holland was going to be Link.
Yeah, it said Tom Holland should be Link, and Anya Taylor-Joy should be Zelda.
Yeah, well, see, that's the problem. Like, AI only takes from the top handful of Google searches, basically, and those two have been the big popular fan casts for Link and Zelda. Though, today I've been seeing a lot of really big rumors as to the actual Zelda casting. Forget her name, but she looks exactly like her. Like, it's uncanny. Someone put a picture of her next to Zelda from both Breath of the Wild and Twilight Princess, and it's like, that's her. That's her in live action. What happened?
Yeah, so that's a good point though, with AI being heavily reliant on just top results. So it's kind of funny because of that. Sometimes you just get inaccurate information. So yeah, there you go. That's the moral of the story, I guess. Don't become reliant on AI because it's not always right.
Is that your wise words of wisdom?
Probably not, no.
Yeah,
But it might be your wise words of wisdom.
Left.
It might be your wise words of wisdom when you share it at the end of the podcast.
Oh. Come at me, bro. All right. Anyway, Superman movies coming out. Fantastic Four movies coming out later. Avengers Doomsday keeps getting news every so often.
That Fantastic Four movie as well, right?
Yeah. Saw Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts was fantastic.
Nice.
And the really big news. So Marvel and DC have started getting along again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about how we're getting the crossovers comic series from the two studios. Or publishers, I should say. Video Game Mode. And they announced the first of the Marvel DC crossovers that are coming in later this year. And it's going to be Batman and Deadpool.
Ooh, that's interesting.
It's very interesting because Deadpool is newer currently than the last Marvel DC crossover. So he never had a chance to be a part of it.
Gotcha. No when was the last one?
I'm backtracking on that hard, but he wasn't part of the original crossovers.
Gotcha.
I think that's cool. I think it is kind of an airball, though, because while that one's going to make a lot of money, the comic book that will make the most money out of all time and forevermore and ever and always is Deadpool and Harley Quinn. And I think that's what they should have went with first.
That would have been a lot of fun, honestly.
Yeah. That would have made buku dollars.
Not even just that, but I think their characters would bounce off each other more than Batman does.
Yeah, Batman feels really serious to be putting with Deadpool. But I guess there is also the element that Deadpool has zero problems killing things, and Batman has all kinds of problems killing things. So you have that juxtaposition.
They would definitely be at ends with each other about that.
Yeah. So there's that. They do have that going for it, but otherwise,
Yeah, I remember I played some of Marvel Midnight Suns in the past, but it's been so long since I played it that I've restarted. Um, I remember with Deadpool's missions in that game because he's one of the DLC characters that he would interact with Blade a lot in his missions, and that dynamic was pretty fun. Even though Blade's a very serious character and Deadpool's just over the top.
yeah.
One of
So
my
we'll
favorite
probably get
scenes.
something similar to that.
Yeah, probably. One of my favorite scenes with it was there was a part where a vampire is jumping up behind about to attack Deadpool, and Blade stabs his sword through Deadpool into the vampire and kills the vampire, then pulls it away. After he does that, Deadpool goes, "Good thinking, because you knew that stab wouldn't kill me." Blade doesn't say anything, then Deadpool goes, "You did know that wouldn't kill me, right?" Blade doesn't say anything.
Well, Deadpool had it coming. Yeah, so that's the big news. Everyone's excited about that. Um, I think that does it for our comic book news. So I think we're good to hop into the main topic.
All right, sounds good. So, yeah, our main topic was we were going to talk about the different A's of video games and how that potentially relates to comic books because I know comic books don't really use the A system. Where, you hear, triple A games, and then it makes you wonder what the heck then are double and single A games. So, I thought that would be a fun thing to discuss.
Yeah, and I agree. So how about we start with this? Uh, can you explain in a nutshell, like what triple A means and what double A and single A? What is this system?
Yeah, sure thing. So the thing though is in essence triple A it's just a word or a phrase that developers came up with time or gamers. I don't know exactly where it originated from. But the idea behind it is that the triple A games are the big budget games where developers are putting millions upon millions of dollars to develop these games in the hope that they're going to draw a huge community, make a ton of money off of them. So because that's always the biggest of the bunch that are able to develop those games. So for example, you have EA, Activision, Blizzard, and just like pretty much anyone partnering with any of the big three of the console games just fall into that category where they get the most attention, the most money, with the hope of the biggest payouts with them. So on the other end of the spectrum, you have single A, which we don't really use that term often. It's mostly people will say indie games. These are games that either are made by very small teams or sometimes just by a single person in their home. And the idea behind them is it gives them a lot more creative freedom, lets them do a lot more. But on top of that, it also cuts down on developer costs, but they also don't have big advertisement or big names pushing them. So they have higher odds of not performing as well. But some indie games can really stand out. So because of that, you then have double A games. And these are like the medium sized games that you see. But that'll be an interesting one to expand on further because as video games have developed recently, we've kind of seen the death of double A studios, where it's like, these smaller teams making these decently budgeted games, but then they just don't, they fall right in between them both. But as the gap has gone bigger and as video games have gone more expensive to make, we don't see as many double A games anymore.
Yeah. So I was taking that, and that's a very video game idea, is ranking studios like this, and I was trying to figure out what that would be for comics. And I found that the parallels were pretty simple to make. So,
Okay.
generally speaking, as far as American comics go, you have your big AAA publishers, or the ones that get all of the budget and all of the time and energy and such, and
Hmm.
that would be whatever Marvel and DC are making. Right? They're showing up, they're releasing the new Call of Duty for the year, or the uh, big high action game that you would expect Sony to be making every year. It's consistent, it's safe, it's really polished. On the other hand, though, because it is safe, it may not be experimenting as much. Just because there is more money put into it, so uh, the people putting up the money, the people taking the risk, they prefer to stick a little bit closer to what has been proven and what does work, for the sake of not losing out on their investment, right?
Yeah, that's another big thing is the AAAs and the big companies, they have to worry about it, which causes them to have to play it safe.
Yeah. Whereas we get AA publishers, and for comics, this is really strong. And I'd love to sit down and talk about this sometime, maybe during this episode, where
Yeah, I'm down.
uh, we have places like Dark Horse or Image that produce things that are a little bit more niche, a little bit more specialized, a little bit more experimental, and sometimes it really succeeds, and other times it just kind of falls into obscurity. So this
Yeah.
would be things like Image made Invincible and has had great success with Invincible. Or you get The Last of Us, not The Last of Us, that's a video game. The Walking Dead, which is basically The Last of Us. Like, you
Yeah.
get The Walking Dead, and that just takes the world by storm, and so does The Boys. And like occasionally one of these just gets huge and everyone holds on to it and is like, this is the big cool thing. And then on the other side you get things like Survival Street, which was published on a pretty wide basis, and it was really, really good, but it didn't pick up the same kind of traction, so people have a harder time hearing about it.
Yeah, I've never heard that in my life. I have no idea what Survival Street is.
I'm working on a video for it right now, because this released maybe 2 years ago, and it's become infinitely more relevant now. I don't want to get too far into the weeds with this one, right? Though, because like it is, like many comic books are, extremely politically charged.
Yeah.
But basically, the premise of it is that corporations all of a sudden got the same rights and privileges as individuals, and the first thing to go was funding for PBS and NPR. Oh, excuse me. And the Muppets from Sesame Street turn into like this rogue rebel unit that goes through all of these towns and takes these corporations down a peg and frees children from much looser child labor laws that have been passed. So like when it was released, it was supposed to be speculative humor, and it has become a little bit less so. But that's as far as I'll take it.
I gotcha, yeah. That's the thing is we definitely at the end of the day, we've definitely been seeing more politics with comics and video games and everything. Like to the point where I remember just okay, so I need to explain this first.
Y'all for it.
So growing up, I loved watching the Spy Kids series and those movies because they were just silly, ridiculous fun, perfect for people around my age at that time. Absolutely ridiculous movies. Not high quality, but just fun, right?
Not high quality even a little bit.
Nope. And then, like, they would strangely get, like, really big names to be in it, which was kind of hilarious.
Right, yeah.
Just like, yeah, Spy Kids 2, yeah, Steve Buscemi's in there, why not?
Right. Oh, we're getting a call from the president. Oh, it's George Clooney?
Hey, look, it's the villain of the third movie. Oh, if it isn't Sylvester Stallone and his 3 clones.
It's like, oh, just the silly, low budget, awfully looking movies. They're well written and well acted, but not very much budget went into effects or anything like that. But yeah, you'd get these huge AAA actors, using that term again, who just show up. It's like, huh.
Yeah, but anyway, the point I was getting to, though, was naturally I watched Shark Boy and Lava Girl growing up. Hilariously bad. Enjoyed watching that for how bad it was. Um, and then, so naturally, when they announced they're doing a sequel to Shark Boy and Lava Girl called We Can Be Heroes, I'm like, yeah, I'll go watch that. And I watched it, I was laughing at it. It just threw me off how randomly political it got in the middle of it.
Yeah, and it's like, there's definitely an argument to be made that some of these movies that we love, or some of these stories that we love, have always been political. And I'd like to think that for the vast majority of them, that is a true statement. But it feels a little bit more overt now.
That's my thing. I don't mind political statements in like movies and stuff if you can infer them or get your own interpretation of it. My issue is when it's being force-fed down your throat and they're trying to push specific agendas to you. That's what I don't like.
Yeah. Well, anyway, like when it comes to Survival Street was a mid-budget book. It was really, really, really good. I really, really, really enjoyed it. Nobody heard about it.
Can confirm I'm part of the group of people that have never heard about it.
Yeah, well, that's good. And then you have the indies, and oftentimes these like AA publishers will just kind of be lobbed into the family of indies. But indie comics are typically like treasure hunting books starring archaeologists. I got my joke in. We're talking like people who will self-publish a book, and sometimes these get traction, but only if it really depends on who's making the book.
Yeah.
Like I have a friend who has a reasonably successful indie published books, but it only is because the artist did a really successful Harley Quinn run at one point. So people are showing up for that one artist. But these are like, it could be big, but it is a ridiculous uphill battle to get noticed.
I gotcha. And even with those, like, names that you mentioned that are AA, like Invincible, The Walking Dead, The Boys, I think part of their reason for their more exploding success is the fact that they got recognized for their stories and their potential and got made into TV shows, which brought them into, like, mainstream media view.
That's always the TV show. That comic books do not live by themselves anymore. It's always in connection to something else. Have you seen the movie Cowboys vs. Aliens?
I have not, no.
Okay. Well, back in like both of these actors' big comebacks, Harrison Ford and Daniel Craig of James Bond theme, they starred in a movie called Cowboys vs. Aliens. And the movie wasn't very well received. It didn't make a lot of money. I thought it was decent. Like, it was a fairly inoffensive movie. It wasn't, like, bad or anything. But nothing special about it either. And
Mhm.
I do some digging, come to find out that movie started as an indie comic by, like, these two guys.
Go
And
figure.
they made the comic specifically so they could make it into a movie later.
That's
Like,
kind of fun.
yeah, like if you rate the back of the book, and they don't even hide it. Like, the author will be like, "Yeah, we made this book, and yeah, it's 50 pages long, and yeah, we're selling it for like nothing. And the reason why we're doing that is because the only reason this book exists is so that we could turn it into a movie later." And I was like, "Well, at least we're honest with ourselves."
Yeah, that's extremely honest of them.
Yeah, the book was way better than the movie was.
That tends to be a running theme, yeah.
Well, like, the movie is almost completely different. But, like, the book had this really cool allegory between the aliens wanting to take over the world and the cowboys taking over the Native Americans' land. And, like, it drew that parallel and was really interesting. But the movie did not talk about that even a little bit.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's very interesting because I actually remember seeing ads for Cowboys versus Aliens when I was younger and being like, "Wow, that movie looks dumb," but I had no idea it was connected to a comic book series.
Yeah. Well, it's not even a series, it's just one.
Oh, a single comic book.
It's
Okay.
a single comic book. It's not even that long. It's maybe 50 pages, which the standard length for a single issue you pick up every month is 22 pages. So it's barely bigger than a double feature. But yeah, just they sold it for super cheap because they wanted people to read it, because then they could say, "Oh, this was a really high selling comic book. You should make it a
Mhm.
movie."
Yeah, and it's been very interesting to see because AA studios have kind of died out in the world of video games, unfortunately, where you just don't see many of them anymore. I think it's because with AA studios, unfortunately, with how much games cost now, one flop and their studio goes under type deal.
Well, we see studios go under all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Just today, I was reading about EA canceling an open world Black Panther game,
Yep.
and they closed down the studio as well.
Yep. They fired. Okay, here's the crazy thing. They also laid off like a bunch of people. And they were being asked, how many people did you lay off? And EA refused to answer, which lets us know it was probably a lot of people.
That's a whole subject in of itself.
Yeah, at the end of the day, these large AAA studio, it's a weird situation where these large AAA studios have grown to the point where they always try to play it safe, expecting these sales to happen. So they put in tons of money, but as you and I have talked about in the past, they don't consider the human factor. They just assume the game's going to sell X amount based on data they collected, but they don't consider the burnout that gamers have gone through, the fact that they don't want to just play the same things over and over again. They want to experience something new.
Well, I was reading something fascinating earlier where I guess Fortnite has been having a problem even with this season. That usually the Star Wars season is like a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
but this Star Wars season they were pointing out that in most Fortnite lobbies you might have a maximum of 5 humans playing, and the other 95 are
That's a big
bots.
problem.
Of course, it's different if you're playing ranked, but it's like even Fortnite, which is notorious for being in the top selling games forever, like never leaving that top 3 list, it's hitting the situation where people aren't playing.
Well, I mean, Fortnite's been around for like what, a decade now?
Yeah, close to.
Okay, yeah, 2017, so 8 years. Naturally, people are going to get burned out. That's also an issue that's been having with League of Legends is League of Legends has been having a decline in players as well in recent years.
Which is surprising because you think they would see a huge uptick with the success of Arcane and the spin-off games coming in.
That's the problem, though, is that Arcane and the spin off games, while really good and fun games, I enjoy them personally. The issue, though, is the fact that a lot of people that experience these then go play League of Legends aren't going to end up enjoying the gameplay of League of Legends.
No, it's League of Legends is not a story-based high-octane action adventure. It's strategy.
Yep. It's an action focused strategy game where you control your one character and try to fight enemies.
Right. So you get someone who's watching this high-octane, beautifully animated, character-driven action TV show, and they're like, sweet, I'm going to go play League of Legends for the first time, and I want to play as Jinx because she's so cool. And then they're like, oh, what horrible game is this?
Well, it goes
It's not
deeper than
horrible.
that as well.
League of Legends is fun.
League of Legends is fun. The thing is it's a MOBA, and it does what MOBAs do well, and people enjoy it for what it is. If you know what you're getting into, it's a fun game.
Yeah.
But it definitely doesn't appeal to everyone, and yeah, the audiences that get into League of Legends aren't gonna really enjoy that immediately, and that's another issue with League, is you don't start with all the characters from the very start.
You don't?
Nope, you have to unlock them all.
Jeez.
I think the game only gives you a handful of free champions. It's been so long since I was at that point, I don't even know. Let me see. League of Legends. Do you start with any champions? Because they do what's called the weekly rotation, where every week they'll have a group of champions you can play for free if you don't own any champions.
Mm. Kind of
Yeah,
like
so-
Multiverses did back in the day.
Yep. So, but yeah, you do not start with every champion. So even if you hopped in like, I want to play Jinx, nope, you don't have access to Jinx.
Right. So there is that disconnect. But I think another thing that's um, swimming back through the weeds to get back to the trail a little bit. I think another thing to consider is that what was propping up a lot of these double A developers was between their unique games, they would do things like movie tie-ins.
That's very true.
And those are the kinds of games that don't really exist anymore.
A great example of that, actually, is the studio called Behavior Studio.
Okay.
Behavior Interactive.
I
So,
vaguely
Behavior-
remember them.
Yeah, Behavior Interactive is a studio that originally went by the name A2M, which stood for Artificial Mind and Movement, but...
Sure.
And if you know what that acronym stands for, you know why they ended up changing their name.
It's a dirty joke.
Yeah, so, yeah, they became Behavior Interactive. They're a good example of a AA studio, where I'm going to pull up their stuff really quickly. Like, for example, the very first game they ever made was in the year 2000. They made the Grinch game for PlayStation, PC, and Dreamcast.
Hmm. And they made Monsters Inc. as well for the PlayStation.
Yep, Monsters Inc., Smurf Racer, Scooby-Doo Mystery Mayhem, Scalar, interestingly enough. Yeah, so they did a lot of these tie-in games from all kinds of different things. And because of that, though, they were able to save up money with time. And with that, they eventually made their own game called Naughty Bear that I personally think is hilarious and a lot of fun, but is not a very good game, but a fun one. Um, but then, because they were able to, with time, cover a lot of their expenses doing these side projects, they were eventually able to create um, the game Dead by Daylight, which has exploded and is just a very, very successful AA game to the point where they've had ridiculously big name uh, characters and horror movie franchises in there.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
when you lose, well, okay, so it takes a lot of time to make a video game, and it takes more time to make a video game than it does to make a movie. The tipping point that I can see is Batman, ever since the first Tim Burton movie in 1989, has had a tie-in game to every movie.
Mm-hmm.
Until The Dark Knight. Batman Begins had a tie-in game, and it was okay, but the turnaround time from Batman Begins to The Dark Knight was close to like 2 years.
Yeah.
And the developers who were making these Batman games were trying to make the Dark Knight game and went to Warner Brothers when the movie was like 4 months out and said that there is no way, with how modern technology is and with the power behind the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, that they can make a decent product that's worth releasing in connection to The Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm.
And they canceled that game. And instead, Warner Brothers said, okay, make a generic Batman game instead and see what that does. And we don't need to tie it into anything, it can just exist. And they
Is
made
that
the,
where
yeah, they made Arkham Asylum, and it completely took the world by storm and proved that you can use properties, but you don't need to be a tie-in game.
And that's kind of the turning point, huh? Where we start seeing less and less tie-in games.
Yeah, we see less of them, and then I noticed this trend that the tie-in games for movies, especially, they started taking on different forms. Like you had Disney Infinity, that every so often it would update with the new world and the new characters for the next movie that was releasing that summer. But it was still using the same basic control scheme and same control, like character, the same gimmicks and the same little engine. Like it felt like you were just playing one game, but now you just have a few new characters. And then that kind of died down, and Lego Dimensions went with it. And now we have this situation where we can either invest in a studio to spend 4+ years making a game, or we can spend like maximum 2 months making a new skin and a new pickaxe and then drop them in Fortnite and say that's our video game collaboration. And then that's just it. And since you have this huge industry, this movie industry, that no longer is trying to make games related to their movies at all, that means there's less, let's call it what it is, shovelware for these AA studios to make some cash on the side so that they can afford to make the passion project.
Exactly, because that's definitely what they did, was they would create these shovelware tie-in games that they could knock out really quickly, make a decent buck from them, not from the game sales, but just from the developers paying them to develop these games. They then have the money and the budget to make what they want.
But
And
it turns out that what the studios wanted got really, really big. And I think there's a moral lesson here. I'm not sure what it is, but the studios wanted bigger and better and more interesting games related to their IPs. But now we've gotten to the point where it's almost like their own greed kind of made it so that they don't even get medium quality. They just get like a cheap cosmetic and they call it a day.
yep. And it's to the point where, like, now instead of like these spin-off and tie-in games, it's yeah, let's go to X really big AAA game and throw in content for that. We even see that like in fighting games, for example. Like for example, Mortal Kombat 1 that came out, and over half the DLC characters were licensed guest characters.
One of them was Peacemaker,
Mm-hmm.
which 100% he was only in the game because Warner Brothers wanted to market the TV show that was going on at the time.
Exactly. And like it was really weird though because they put Omni-Man and oh gosh, what's the guy's name from The
Homelander.
Boys? Homelander. They put them both in at the same pass at the same time.
Yeah, it's like here's your same character. We're giving them a different voice actor, but they do the same thing.
Well, okay, I will say they were kind of smart about it in the actual gameplay, where what they did was they had Omni-Man focus more on, Superman style hard hittingness and speed, while Peacemaker focused more on like lasers.
Well, Homelander, but yeah.
Sorry, yeah, Homelander, sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, so but like that right there, making a single fighter takes way less work than building a whole game.
Exactly.
But again, when you do that, you run out of other opportunities. So I guess my next question, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. If we don't get movie tie-ins to help fund the passion projects of AA games, what's left to do?
What's left to do is sink or swim for them. They either, try to make their passion projects, hope they do well. If they do well, they grow and they get to make more games. If they don't do well, the company ends and the talent have to go elsewhere.
That's kind of bleak.
It is kind of bleak. But that is what leads to some very interesting moments happening in the gaming world. So, you ready for this one?
Lay it on me.
Alright. Claire Obscure Expedition 33.
Ooh.
That is a game that was made by a group of about, I believe, based on the research I did online, 30 or so people, with a good chunk of them being ex-Ubisoft developers.
Okay.
They decided that they didn't want to, develop games for Ubisoft anymore because they weren't enjoying what they were making, and they came together to make the game they wanted to make, which is a turn-based RPG with Paper Mario-style action commands in it.
All right.
So, they do it with these very solid graphics and made their own AA studio with it. They released the game, and it was a critical success to the point that this small game with 30 developers in it, that they were charging for only $50, ended up selling over 3 million copies in a month.
That's nothing to sneeze at. That's pretty good.
Especially for a small company like that. So, we do have hopeful moments like this where we see some AA studios make it big with Claire Obscure, with Dead by Daylight, with similar ones, and it's really cool to see that happen. But it very much is unfortunate that we don't always see that occurring. But I think it's because of that rift with the AA is the reason why we see so many not only AAA studios but indie games now. We see so many indie games succeed. It's amazing.
And what I think is really cool about indie games and these single A and really small projects is that they are crazy experimental. And because
Yes.
they are very experimental, they get to discover things that the AAA developers that they just simply aren't able to experiment as much because they have so much higher risk involved. It's almost like if you have nothing to give, you have nothing to lose. It's kind of like that, where
Mm-hmm.
these indie developers, all they have is, if they're lucky, a semi-successful Kickstarter. And so it's like, well, what have we got to lose? Not much. Let's just do something crazy. And they get to
Mm-hmm.
do some more experimenting, which then informs what the AAA studios can get away with.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you see some like really cool projects come to life and just really cool games that you don't really see otherwise. Like, I think a really good example of a fun, unique game that did very well as an indie game was a game called, A Hat in Time. All they wanted to do was make a fun, cutesy 3D platformer during a time when you didn't see many 3D platformers. And that game sold incredibly well because it
Right.
was innovative and covering a niche that people were missing.
Like the AAA developers, they got into a safe routine. Nobody was really making 3D platformers like that anymore. Like, not even Nintendo, who I would argue is like the studio that made that a thing. And they're just like, oh, that's right, we love these games. And out of that, like Banjo and Kazooie, I remember was around that time as well, and there were a few others. But like it brought back the 3D platformer in a big way. And go ahead and say that I'm crazy and insane.
You're crazy and insane.
Thank you.
Yep.
I bet you that the success of A Hat in Time is one of the biggest informers to Nintendo to start doing that kind of thing again.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Let me double check something actually.
Yeah, I don't know what the dates are, but if I was really bold, I would say that A Hat in Time is the reason why we have Mario Odyssey. But the dates might be off in order to make that claim.
Funny enough, A Hat in Time was released, it looks like, roughly 2 to 3 weeks before Odyssey, so odds are they were in development around the same time.
Okay. But like Hat in Time was definitely made not to try and fill a trend, but to fill a need.
Yeah. I get what you mean though, because it's very interesting because like there was a big span where Nintendo hadn't really dipped back into the 3D platforming world, and that was during the Wii U era. We got Super Mario Galaxy, Super Mario Galaxy 2, then we didn't see another 3D Mario game until we got Odyssey.
Well, if we look again at that, the Wii U wasn't doing anything.
Nope.
So the games that they were funding to make happen were games that could easily be ported to the 3DS. And
Mm-hmm.
the games that were easily ported to the 3DS are 2D platformers. So we got some really good
That's true.
2D platformers, but between New Super Mario Brothers and Donkey Kong Country Returns, it's like, sweet. I missed the Z axis, Can we get the Z-axis back?
Yeah, it's definitely been interesting to see how indie games can kind of influence stuff. But I would argue that I can also understand why Nintendo went more into focus on 2D platformers because a lot of indie games at the time were very focused on 2D platformers and those were performing extremely well.
Yeah, games like Shantae or all of the Sonic fan games.
Yep, like even in like the mid 2000s you had like Limbo and Fez and Braid were all doing really well.
Now, if I can hit a topic that is kind of adjacent to this, because I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
Sure thing.
Once upon a time, there was a game called Dynasty Warriors
Ah, yes.
that was not, go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong, was not a AAA game.
Dynasty Warriors was definitely a double A
Yeah.
game studio for sure.
And then what happened? Nintendo shows up and is like, buddy, can we get this game but Zelda? And then they make Hyrule Warriors, which I think we have to agree is a AAA game.
Oh yeah, for sure, because they got that Nintendo budget behind it, so it's definitely AAA.
Yeah. And then similarly, Cadence of Hyrule is built off of the back of an indie game, like the indiest
Crypt of the
indie
Necro.
games.
It's called Crypt of the Necro Dancer.
Yeah. Like, you don't get much more independent game than that. So, what is your opinion then on independent games that inform AAA so much that they get grandfathered in to make a AAA game based off of their independent game?
Honestly, I'm completely fine with it because I love that it brings more attention to games that I think deserve more attention.
Guess that's what there is to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's pretty. Anything that brings more attention to single or double A games, I like.
Do you think that when that happens, people do go back and we see an increase of interest in the original independent game?
I'm gonna check that really quickly, actually.
Because I'd be curious if people picked up Hyrule Warriors. Like, how many people played Hyrule Warriors, then turned around and played Dynasty Warriors because of it? Or Cadence of Hyrule was sort of a DLC. How many people bought a Cadence of Hyrule and said, oh, this was a really cool sample of a different game, and then they played the different game?
I'm going to look something up really quickly out of curiosity. Okay, so Crypt of the Necrodancer came out April 23rd, 2015, okay?
Mhm.
So, you have this nifty tool on Steam called Steam Charts, and you can see the total number of players in a time frame.
Okay.
So, I'm going to take when Crypt of the Necrodancer came out and compare it to the end of the year for when it came out. Let's see if this works. Okay. Got pulled up. Okay, so when the game first came out, we saw like 1,300 players on average every day. Okay?
All right.
During that time frame, it dropped down to roughly 300 to 600, okay?
Okay.
Cadence of Hyrule came out June 13th, 2019. During that time, May and June, they hopped up from like 2 to 300 to 1,172 and 591, and had a consistently higher average for the rest of the year.
So
So it
yeah,
definitely does bring attention.
it brought him back to at launch numbers then. You still there?
Oh, sorry, my bad.
No, it's all good. So it brought
Yeah,
him
so
back to launch numbers.
exactly. So people go, "Oh, this game looks cool." They try the spin-off or the game made by the developer or the studio, and they're like, "Wow, what a cool game. Let me go see what the original's like." And they go and play the original as well. So that's why I support it and I like it, because I think it's something that always points more attention to those smaller studios, which I like to see. I like to see smaller studios and indie games grow.
So that might be the solution then to pick up the slack that losing movie tie-ins left, where now instead of just trying to tie into a super successful movie or property, now we just tie into a different video game.
Yeah, honestly, not a bad idea. I think if more games do that, we could see the growth of more indie games and double A studios again.
Which would be good because, like we've talked about, like these are the studios that experiment and push the medium further.
Exactly. Yeah, so if they can experiment and they can push the medium further and create these games that people love, then the AAA studios can go to the first part, to the single A, the indie games, and be like, "Hey, we like this. Could you make this with our property?" And that can shoot them into the double A status.
There we go. That's the solution. Everybody needs to share more.
So, yeah, there you go. Everyone should share more. But I'm kind of curious how you seeing this ties in with comic books, because it almost seems like double A studios don't suffer as much regarding comic books as they do for video games. I'm curious as to ask why you think that is.
So, in a magical time called the 1990s, it was a strange time. Everyone was still excited about the 80s, but like in a different way. I don't know. But the
What?
80s had this huge boost in popularity for uh, the big uh, publishers. I was about to say studios, that's not correct. But there was a big push for it in popularity in the 1980s for both Marvel and DC. Marvel was expanding in a big way. They introduced Venom. They introduced the big crossover of Secret Wars. And then DC followed that up with Crisis on Infinite Earths. And DC was still riding the high of 1978's Superman movie. And they were building up to 1989's Batman. And Marvel wasn't really doing movies, but like there were rumors on the horizon that they were going to. So like huge things were happening. And then there was a writer slash artist complaint at Marvel. They went to the publishers at Marvel and said, "We are creating an awful lot of stuff here that's doing really, really well." Todd McFarlane walks in and says, "Hey, I created Venom. Can I get like a bonus for doing that? Maybe?" Well, I think it was actually David Michelini who invented Venom. That's important enough. I better look it up.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. So David Michelini and Todd McFarlane are actually both given credit for it. That's interesting.
Huh. For Venom,
And Mike
that is?
Zeck is there too.
Okay.
That's really unique. Anyway, they show up and they're like, "Hey, we created these huge characters, and we'd like to, see a little bit of the sales for that. We're doing well." And the publisher said, "Nah, I don't think so. And everyone was kind of bummed out. But then something magical and weird and crazy started growing out of the sewers called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles just changed everything, right? Like, this proved that you can have a massive success and not be Marvel or DC. So,
Yeah, because they were huge not only with comics, but like TV shows, toys, everything. They were all over the place in the 80s.
yeah. Well, that was it. Like, that's a whole other story, and we could get into the weeds, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had this huge marketing genius behind them that was like, hey, your comic is good. If we turned it into a toy aimed at kids, it will make stupid money. And it did. And it just continued to make stupid money. And the creators of TMNT got to keep almost all of that money outside of production cost. And so a bunch of these writers and artists saw that and they're like, well, thanks, Marvel. Sayonara. And they left and created. This is where we get Image and Dark Horse and Boom. Like, they all left to create these studios. And the premise of it was, if you create something, you get creator rights for it. And we'll just market your character, but it's your character. And they started making buku dollars, and proving that people, yeah, they like the characters, but eventually enough people started catching on that they like these characters, and what makes them like them are the artists and writers behind them. And if the writers and artists behind them are leaving to go do something else, we should go see what something else they're working on.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So you get all that going on. And this really forced Marvel, and honestly to a lesser extent DC. DC was a lot better about giving artists credit. Actually, a bunch of the Marvel guys left for DC. But it made these studios look at themselves and say, we should probably be a little bit better about our artists and writers. But it was too late. Pandora's box had opened, and now everybody is an independent agent. Nobody actually works for Marvel and DC, or at least very few people do. They're all freelancers. And
Yeah, it's almost like if you don't treat your employees well, they'll go somewhere where they are treated well. Go figure.
yeah. And at the time where they were treated well was at their own studio making Spawn.
Mm-hmm.
And, making tons of toys with Spawn and making a couple of movies and an animated series and walking away with lots and lots of stacks of money.
And throwing them into Soul Calibur 2.
And throwing them into Soul Calibur 2.
I love that one because that one was pretty much like, hey, we just made the Xbox, so because of that we don't really have any like definitive character we could put in. Could you help us out? Seth MacFarlane's like, I will put Spawn in anything.
Yeah. So, that's... And it's because he had full rights to the character. He couldn't have just put Venom in everything, even though, Venom is his child.
Mm-hmm.
But he could put Spawn wherever he wants.
Exactly.
And this kind of thing where I would say the factor that makes AA and single A comics work in regards to the AAA ones is that all the way up and down that spectrum, it's the same people.
Mm-hmm.
You have Scott Snyder, who writes his AA vampire book that does pretty decent on its own, and it's under his own indie developer, and they do pretty good on their own. But then he walks over to DC the next day and says, "Hey, I got your next issue of Batman ready." And people come to Batman for the character, but if they like the writing, they go to Scott Snyder. And he has other stuff. So I think that's where it's a little bit different from how video games work, just because there's very few, I think, auteurs or like names in video game development that are bigger than the games that they develop.
I getcha.
Like Shigeru Miyamoto, if he left Nintendo and started making his own thing, he would take a lot of people with him.
Very true. So because of that, they're not going to run the risk of losing someone like Shigeru Miyamoto.
Right. Or, what's his name? Metal Gear.
Hideo Kojima.
Yes. Kojima, he transfers all over the place.
Yeah.
And he brings fans with him because people like him himself almost more than they like his games.
Yeah, they really like what he offers, and he does a good job of making these unique experiences. He is a good example of a AAA developer that's always trying to push things and create something new and unique experiences, which I think that's part of the reason why he's gotten such a big fan base, is because he's always pushing, and he's always trying to make something new.
Yeah. But I think a big part of that is that he's insanely lucky. Like, if you look at Death Stranding, I cannot describe Death Stranding without sounding crazy.
Very true.
And I can barely describe Metal Gear Solid without sounding crazy. Like, these are weird games.
Yep.
And I think he's only as successful as he is because the games aren't buggy. And he just got really, really lucky making Metal Gear Solid at the time that he did.
Very true. I mean, because the original Metal Gear games didn't do well, it was Metal Gear Solid that landed them on the map.
Right. And I think I would argue that the only reason Metal Gear Solid put him on the map is we were all really excited about 3D games. And he made a 3D game that wasn't a first-person shooter or a platformer. And so he really had no competition for his sneak-around stealth game.
Exactly. He made this very unique sneak-around stealth game. And it worked out so well for him because the original Metal Gears were a 2D style, over-the-head, a bird's-eye view style stealth games that were challenging to play and didn't do well, but the fact that he took that and put that into the 3D space is what made it stand out.
Mm-hmm. But going back to comics, I think it works that way too, where Todd McFarlane runs off, starts Image, makes Spawn. We all like Spawn. Image grows, and Image can afford to take a risk on some of these smaller stories. And if the smaller stories don't work, that's okay because Spawn is making stupid money. And we turn around and Invincible comes along and it makes stupid money. And all of the writers are excited and happy to be working with these AA studios because they get paid fairly for their work.
Yeah.
And then indies are really interesting and hard to do though, because typically I would define an indie in comic book space like this. And AA usually gets thrown under the indie banner, but I would say an indie comic is one where the book and the publisher of that book are the same. So, for example, I'm doing, like, I talked about Death Watch, which was that book that was done by the Harley Quinn artist. That one is published by his own publishing studio that exclusively publishes Death Watch.
Okay, gotcha.
So they don't have a second book underneath their publishing house it's just him. And I would say that is the distinction from a double A and a single A comic book studio is that. And it's really, really difficult for really, really big artists to start their own studios because, frankly, I think we have all of the studios that we need.
I will say, I think something else that's been added into the space with time is with the existence of, online comic book making. That's kind of entered the space of allowing people to create their own work that way, in a sense, maybe even like lowercase a studio or something.
Yes, that is a very, very solid point because what the internet happens and now people can get exposure if
Mhm.
they frame their idea in the right way.
Or if they, like, funny enough, use a platform like Webtoons or something to grow really big, or they establish a Patreon and that's their main source of revenue to keep making the comics.
Right, because Webtoon, I would say something like Webtoon is the equivalent to Steam,
Yeah,
where
fair.
anyone can make a thing, anyone can put it on Webtoon, and anyone can become successful off of Webtoon. But whether or not you become successful off Webtoon is entirely up to just you and how good you are at marketing.
Yep, that's fair. So yeah, I guess
Yeah,
we just discovered lowercase a comic books.
lowercase a comic books. And what's fascinating is that the big AAAs have started using Webtoon as well. Like DC hired a few fan artists who do fan work and had them do official comics under the DC banner.
Mm-hmm.
That is Crypt of the Necrodancer stuff.
Yeah, true.
There's one lady who just for fun did a fan comic about Batman interacting with all of his Robins and how weird that must be. And DC, rather than write a cease and desist, said, "Hey, how about you just keep doing that, but we pay you now?"
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Wayne Family Adventures. It's fantastic. It's a good time.
Or you have situations like what happened with Sega, which I would argue Sega was a AAA studio that became AA with time, interestingly enough.
I would agree. Sega
They
is
do have some.
Sega is a tricky one though because like they weren't just a game developer; they made a console.
Mm-hmm. They're also kind of tricky because they have some of these big budget, expensive games, mostly for Sonic, Yakuza, and then the Persona slash Shin Megami games. Um, but then they also have these smaller titles they work on at times. So they're a weird one where they're kind of AA, but also kind of AAA.
Well, they're huge in Japan, way bigger than they
That's
are
a fair
here.
point.
And kind of like who is it, Konami?
Yeah.
They make video games, sure, but they make an awful lot of gachapon games and like
I believe they said most of their money is made through pachinko in Japan.
yeah, pachinko. Sega makes a lot of money on pachinko. Konami makes a lot of money on pachinko.
I mean, it makes sense. Hey, you know, if it makes money for your business, go for it. I say, as long as what you're doing is not illegal, sure.
Well, maybe that's another alternative to the lack of movie tie-ins. Maybe in order to have the money to fund your passion project, you got to make a gambling machine.
You either got to gamble or you got to do a Kickstarter, because that's where we see a lot of the unique AA ideas come from nowadays is Kickstarter or a big studio asking an indie game to make something for their AAA studio.
Yeah. Well, like Toys for Bob, I would argue they're a double A producer,
Yeah.
but they got Crash Bandicoot and Spyro at one point, so it's like those aren't small. Well, they might be now. They might be mid-tier now, but they were not back in the day.
They were definitely part of the AAA group in the PS1.
It's so weird how that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Crash Bandicoot talked so much smack on Mario, and now look who's in the double A studio and probably won't get another game.
Yeah, I mean, they made Crash Rumble, but I didn't even bother with that one.
That game happened and then died before I gave it a second thought.
Yeah, that seems to be happening a lot with online games. It's almost like having an online-focused multiplayer game isn't always the best approach. Who would have guessed?
It's not Activision.
Oh, speaking of, like, studios and stuff, by the way, let me double check this. Yeah, yesterday was the day Multiverses officially died.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so sad. I'm sad.
yeah, it's unfortunate. I managed
That
to get
game
into
would have.
single-digit ranks with Banana Guard at one point.
Yes, you were. You were good. You were very, very good.
Held up my own, I guess.
Oh, that is sad to think about. If it just had a regular boring style release, it would have done so much better.
Honestly, that's part of the reason why I think Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 1 and 2 sold pretty well was because they just made it a regular release instead of trying to make like a live service game, and I think that appealed a lot more to people.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I infinitely prefer just to buy the disc and play the game.
Yep.
Uh, Digital only stuff kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, it runs the risk of you losing it. Like, to go off of that, even though okay, let me double check how much I put into this game. Let's pull up Multiverses, okay? On my Steam.
Oh, you put so much time in this game.
I did put a lot of time into that game.
You were single digits at one point.
You can't even find it on the Steam page anymore.
No,
Is it even in your
my
library?
soul.
Oh no, did I lose it from my library?
No.
Okay, there it is. I found it.
Oh, good.
Ignoring the original release, I put 317 hours into Multiverses.
317.
Yeah. I played that game a lot.
Wow. Oh, that's
Yeah.
painful. Oh, that hurts my soul.
But here's the thing. Despite me playing it a lot, you know what I did? I never spent a cent on the game.
So you're part of the problem.
Well, you know why I never spent a cent on the game?
Because you didn't have faith that it would last very long and you didn't want to lose your investment?
Exactly. And that's the problem with these live service games is you have people like me where I've been burned in the past by live service games, so why on earth would I ever take that risk and put money into it if it could just shut down and I lose that money?
Frankly, I felt the same way. But here's the other thing. If it was a physical release and it didn't have a weird stop in the middle of it and then start back up,
That's true.
I would have bought the game at full price. And I would have bought all the Superman skins.
Honestly, that's what they should have done was they should have just been like, "Hey, Thank you for playing during the beta. We're closing it for now. We're gonna release the game at $20. When it comes out, you'll have access to all the characters. They can make it a lot easier to unlock the skins or let you buy them if you wished. And then maybe if they saw player bases drop down, make it free in the future, but then like give some kind of in-game currency compensation to the people that spent $20 on it.
So I work in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
There is a principle that has been nicknamed the IKEA principle.
Okay, how does that work?
The IKEA principle is that people are more invested if they have to put effort into it. You like your coffee table from IKEA more than you like your pre-made coffee table because you put work into it.
Okay.
That's kind of the principle here. When I see a free game like Multiverses, where it takes no effort to hop in and play the game, I start to question its longevity.
Mm-hmm.
But when I see a game release, even at the low price of even $10, $5 even, I believe that game will have a longer lifespan because the people who are playing it invested something in it already.
That's true, because, yeah, a good chunk of those players probably didn't spend any money. Even though Multiverses, you never had trouble getting into games, that's the issue. You didn't have people spending money on it because they didn't feel the need to, or you had people like me where I didn't want to spend money on something that could shut down.
And I hate to say it, but it was because of a lot of the good things that we praised the game for that made it happen. And I hate to say that, but when you play the game, it didn't take long to get enough coins to unlock one character. And you could use that one character unlock on any character in the game. So I get in there. I spent no money to download the game. I spend no money to get through the tutorial. And somehow I gained enough of the in-game currency to unlock Superman permanently. And I was done. I had no more reason to spend money on the game.
That's the thing, is they tried changing that up later, but it got a ton of flack.
Yeah. So they had all of the good things that we are begging studios to do, and unfortunately studios are going to take the wrong lessons from this. All of the good habits that we've been begging for over and over and over and over, and then we get it and we love it and we praise it, but the studio makes no money.
It really is a difficult balancing act for sure.
Well, it's like I said, I would have paid $20 for the game.
Mm-hmm.
I would have bought it new at $50.
Yeah, like if you could, buy it at $20, you get all the characters, and then they could release each, like say they release the game at $20, $30, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from then on, just release each new character $2 to $3 or something.
Yeah, $2 to $3 for each new character. Throw in. I always thought it was weird that Smash Brothers doesn't sit on stages more, but throw in a handful of stages that you can buy in a stage pack or something. But then that makes online a little bit more difficult. So I guess I don't know if you could do that, but anyway.
The solution to that a lot of games do is when you play, like, the solution to that is you play online ranked, and when you play online ranked, just the ranked stages are available and you can use them, or it's selected randomly or whatever. But if you want to choose specific stages in custom matches or single player, you can't if you don't own it.
Oh. If the game still lived, we would have got all the cool Superman movie skins for it.
Probably, yeah. And they had some really cool, unique skins in there too. I loved the Halloween skins so much.
Well, I loved the crossover ones. The crossover ones were so cool, where like everybody had a Beetlejuice version and everybody had a Matrix version.
Yeah, that's the thing with the yeah, that was really cool to see. That was the thing with the Halloween ones is you had characters dressing up as other characters in the game, which was so cool.
So much fun. Anyway, rip multiverses. Gone too soon. We miss you.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, here they are just really quickly. So the Halloween costumes we got from 2024 was Shaggy dressed up as Steven Universe, Bugs Bunny dressed up as Superman, Tom and Jerry dressed up as Batman and the Joker, and then we got Banana Guard dressed up as Marvin the Martian. Like, that's such a cool idea.
It's so cool. Yeah, that game was just all kinds of the best ideas, but with such a messy execution at the beginning, and just no way to really make back their investment.
Yep, and apparently they had invested millions into the game, funny enough.
Well, it was around that time, and I don't like siding with the executives because I feel like executives can get out of touch really quickly. But I can understand the executives' thoughts here, where you have multiverses where you sink so much money and time into it, and it doesn't make back its investment. At the same time, the game that you were expecting to be your windfall was Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League. It's like, what
Yeah,
else
that
can you
didn't do
do?
well.
It,
Yeah, apparent. Hmm?
well, it's just that. What else can you do? You have no successes, and your backup failed. You got to do something different, and you got to take drastic action quickly.
Yeah, I looked it up on Google really quickly out of curiosity. Apparently, that game, Multiverses, they lost 100 million from it.
That's an obscene amount of money.
I'm shocked. I assume most of the cost came from the licensing.
Well,
Even though they owned it, wouldn't they still have to license and pay certain royalties and stuff?
yeah, yeah, to an extent for certain things.
Okay.
It, rights are a complicated thing.
Yeah.
Who owns what is always a big question. And I just have to sit here and be like, why can't we share?
True. Yeah, so apparently they lost 100 million, which is 1/3 of the 300 million they had lost that year.
Ugh.
Yeah,
Anyway,
so that one game contributed to 1/3 of their losses for the year.
we went into the weeds a little bit
Oh,
right
yeah.
then.
We like to do that here.
We did that. That's the name of the game here. Get distracted.
Yep.
We're coming in close to the end here, so let's get some of our final thoughts in here. Uh, Basically, what I'm gathering from this whole conversation is that we're kind of losing a little bit the middle class here, where games take so much money to make that you either have to be AAA or just have nothing but passion fueling you and make something
Exactly.
way smaller. And
Yeah,
then-
but
sorry,
no worries.
go ahead.
I was just gonna add, but then on the other end of the spectrum, because comic books, you could argue, aren't as costly to keep the IP going to release comics. Because of that, you can see a lot more AA studios surviving there.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, the last question here. I think that the comic book industry has stabilized itself pretty well between utilizing webtoons and other internet tools and uh, the acceptance of places like Dark Horse and Image and Boom and the double A producers. I think between that and that respect, comics have hit a bit of a homeostasis. So, do you think that video games could hit that same homeostasis, and what would need to happen in order to do it?
I think before it could potentially hit that homeostasis at all, we're going to have to see the AAA bubble pop.
Explain.
So, we've been seeing a lot of layoffs with AAA studios in the past year or two. I think it's going to get to the point where games are so expensive and where they are struggling to meet their profit margins that either the AAA studio shut down or they have to downsize to AA, or their talent leave and go make their own indie single A or AA studios, like we've seen happen with Claire Obscure Expedition 33. And I could see that becoming a much more popular trend with this game that just came out a month ago, made by these ex-developers. Others are going to see that success and go, dang, we could do that too. I think we're going to see more splits from the third-party studio. So in essence, history repeating itself with what happened with the comic book world, where we see these splits happen, where we see people moving away, becoming their own studios, their own groups. I think that's the only way we could see that happening, and that's going to require the third parties to either break apart or get lowered a peg or two.
There's this constant trend that we see when we do this podcast that just fascinates the heck out of me. That the history of comic books always seems to be about 30-ish years ahead of where the video game history is.
Yeah, it's very interesting. That's something that I've really enjoyed about us having this podcast and, us being able to speak on these subjects is, it's like you said, there's this continuous trend almost as if aspects of human nature are impacting it. And that's why. Because, video games naturally as a medium started in the 1970s. Was it the 1940s for comics or earlier? When was it?
Yeah, I would pin it at the late 30s.
Okay, so yeah, roughly 30 to 40 year difference, so it makes sense that we see these 30 to 40 year gaps happen, and it's almost as if we can track what's happening in comic books and the comic book industry to see what's going to happen in the future to video games.
It's nutty. Like, you had government censorship in the 50s, and then 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, so 35 to 40 years later, you have video game censorship.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have independent contractors leaving to start their own studios in the 90s, and we're seeing that now.
Yep, it's starting to happen now.
Yeah, it's like, it's so cool. I didn't notice that until we started this podcast, so we started seeing that. It's so cool.
It has been really cool to say that. And you mentioned you had one last question, but I think the real last question is, Taylor, do you have any wise words of wisdom?
I do have some wise words of wisdom, even though I gave them in the last one, but that's totally fair. I deserve to give the last thoughts in the last episode.
Fair enough. Yeah, because of what happened, right?
Because of everything that happened, and the fact that the last bit of that episode was just missing, that was my penance.
Oh, it's all good. I just thought it would be funny for me to introduce the wise words of wisdom that way, so I went for it.
Yeah, well, here's the thing also. When I said I had one last question, I was like, I wanted to ask an actual one last question, but there was like something in the back of my mind saying, ask him what his wise words of wisdom are. But
here we are now.
Here we are now. So, my wise words of wisdom are that there are a lot of roadblocks to fulfilling passion, but there are a lot of solutions as well. And if you team up with the right people and if you work hard enough with them, you can take advantage of those opportunities and make your passion really flourish. We have, like, going back in the conversation a little bit, how many people want to make a video game but can't find a job with the AAA studios, and so say, screw it, I'm just going to do it myself, and they make a small indie game that brings joy to the world?
Mm-hmm.
How many people say, I want to make a comic book, but all I have is a half-broken pencil and some lined paper, and then they do it and they post it online and people care? So just, yeah, there are roadblocks. I'm not going to pretend there aren't, but find your people, find your team, and you can overcome those by finding unique opportunities.
To build off of that idea, actually, Claire Obscure Expedition 33, this game that just came out a month ago that's getting headways for being a solid, amazing AA game to the point where people are saying it's the best RPG ever made. The person who made the game's music is named Lorien Testard, okay? He doesn't have any video game credits at all. Literally, one of the developers came across his music he had posted on SoundCloud, went to him and said, "Do you want to make the music for our game?"
Yeah. Find your people.
So, you never know. Try putting it out there. You could find your people that way.
All right, so I think that'll do us for now. Garrett, where can people find us?
Yes, if you want to check out our other videos from this podcast, if you want to check out our other episodes from this podcast, you can check them out on our YouTube channel, which is GC Squared, or you can also find them on Spotify with GC Squared. So yeah, and make sure to also check out Taylor's YouTube channel, Comic Crash. Him and I are under talks to potentially start posting more video game related content to the GC Squared YouTube channel, so keep an eye out for that as well.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very rad. I'm excited for that.
It was a really fun idea where, in essence, we decided that I would write the script for it, get all the gameplay, and then Taylor, using his editing magic, would take care of the editing because I can't edit a toaster.
Alright. And if you want to talk to us, we are very excited to be reading emails and seeing what people have to talk about. If you have any kind of suggestions for an episode, or you have any interesting comments that you'd like to share with us, or if you want to complain about your neighbor's dog or whatever, you can email us at gcsquaredpodcast@gmail.com. That's GCSQUARED podcast@gmail.com.
I totally forgot to add the email. My bad.
No, it's okay. That's what I added the email.
Okay, well, I'm glad that they won't figure out right.
So, check us out there, send us an email, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Yep, thanks again for listening, and we look forward to meeting up and going through the weeds again and talking, so have a good one.